All right, what is going on, guys? It's Shane. We got another band ranking here. We doing Slipknot today. Typical worst to best. Nothing really special here. Let's get into it. Slipknot. So it is special, but you know what I'm saying. On my end, it's not. So, in my opinion, the worst record that this nine-piece band ever put out. And I hate saying it, but there's kind of a reason why. It's in the title. Point 5, the Gray chapter. Notice how Gray is spelled different than the color. It's actually spelled as Paul's last name, their bassist who died overdosed on heroin in 2010. You know, in my which you'll see it coming in my top 5 guitarist and bassist ranking videos. When I mentioned Paul Gray, I mentioned that this man was the glue to this band, and if you listen to the records that happened while Paul Gray was in the band, they were already all very, very, very depressed. And the fact that all of them stayed alive and didn't end their lives after Paul died is amazing, and I'm so happy and proud of them. Not that they need my opinion or support, but I just admire the men for it. Some of the songs on this record, Custer is a good one. Kill Pop is a little poppy, but it's good. The Devil and I it's a little mainstream, but it's not bad. XIX, the intro is okay. It's kind of eerie atmosphere. I mean, it still sounds like Slipknot, but you could tell that a lot had happened since Paul had died, and it was not for the better. But they still made a record. They put it out. They had the balls to do it. They still did a good job. Like I've said in many of my other rankings, and I'll say it again. If this record was put out by a garage band, it would have been a #1 hit. Like, not a #1 hit, but it would have gotten them some money for sure. But as a Slipknot record, it's not great. But, God only knows what could have been going on. And I send my best wishes to the members that are still in or / alive, because a lot of ever since Paul Gray has died, I think there's only like 3 original members. I know that Joey Jordison was obviously dismissed. Gray died. Chris Fane was kicked out. Craig Jones recently was dismissed. Their sampler was dismissed. Yeah, I think only Clown, Corey, Sid Wilson, Mick Thompson, and Jim Root are the original ones that are left. And they even kicked out Jay Weinberg, too. They've gone through like 3 drummers at this point, which is insane. And no one will replace Jordison. Anyways, moving on. So their most recent release and the last record that has tied them to their Warner they had them, Warner Brothers Music kind of had their label, had them by the balls back in 1999 when their first record came out. By the way, the Great Chapter was released in 2014, but this was released in 2022. But when they signed their record and did their self-titled record with Warner Brothers, they said basically, you are tied to us for 7 albums. We will give you $500,000, which probably has gotten a little more, but that's, if you think about the work that these men have done, it's worth more like $2-3 million. But they get money from the shows anyway, so fuck it. But at the time they signed that deal because they didn't know, where they were gonna go. But this record right here was their 7th studio album and their most recent. So when they come out with their next record, it will not be with Warner Brothers, and they won't be tied to their claws, and they can basically. I wouldn't be surprised if the next Slipknot record, if there even is one, is the most creative, diverse, and probably free-feeling record since their first 3-4 records. So, yeah, but the end so far, I have it lower because obviously, these men are getting old. A lot of the original members are gone. It's just not the same Slipknot with the same personalities and the same age as it once was. It doesn't have, just like everything, it flames out after a while. But it's still good for, coming out after We Are Not Your Kind and the Gray Chapter, specifically the Gray Chapter. It's good quality music, and it's a nice return to their roots. It's very heavy, but it's not as good as the next record, which was an even better return to their roots, and you could assume where we're going with that. But the end so far, it's a very good, ominous type record. Some songs in there that stuck out for me was Adderall. I liked Adderall. And it wasn't that one. Which one was that? I forgot the one. I forgot. I didn't really like it too much though when I listened it through, so I didn't really memorize the songs per se, because I didn't really like the sound of the record, but I did spin it back to back, so I at least have an idea of like how it sounds and shit. I don't really like the end so far. Can't even lie. But this next one, I think in the last, ever since 2008 up until today, so ever since All Hope Is Gone was released, this was their best record to date in between that time period, which is about, at this point in 2025, which is about 17 years. It's quite a while. So, in 17 years, We Are Not Your Kind was the best return to their roots, and it actually has, I like the colors, but I also like the atmosphere that a lot of these songs, the vibe they had going into this record, the idea and the way they recorded it and the aesthetic to this record, I think is actually their best aesthetic out of all their albums. But quality-wise, not necessarily production, but quality-wise, it's not their best. Solway Firth, great song. My Pain is actually worth listening to. The intro sounds very haunting. Unsainted, everyone knows that song. Great song. Narrow Forte, I think, is underrated. Very, 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 very good tune there too, with a lot with the harmonies, which you don't really hear too much of that in Slipknot. So it's a nice, fucking cool, unique thing to hear. But overall, solid album for having been in the place they were. And I remember I was still in high school when this record came out, and it was ecstatic. I was flipping when I heard that they were releasing this album when they announced it. It was awesome. And the way they announced it too, everyone was trying to guess the name of the record in that All Out Life song they released the year prior in October of 2018. And no one guessed the chanting at the end, "We Are Not Your Kind." That wasn't what the record was going to be called, but it was epic way, the way they introduced the record, and the way they released a single before releasing the record. It was just, in the way the record was designed, it was flawless in my opinion, and it did them service. All Hope Is Gone is number 4. So this is all the original members for these last 4 albums. All Hope Is Gone. All 4 of these records, in my opinion, are very, very close together. But I had to differentiate them. And All Hope Is Gone, you could tell that even though they didn't know Paul Gray was going to die, that there was like, and it's very eerie to think about, there was like a leering doom, like an impending doom kind of like staring over top of this band. Like you could tell, based on how they made this record, though, that something bad was going to happen, and I think they were nervous, they were scared going into this record, and they were trying something new, and it just didn't work out on this record. It worked out on We Are Not Your Kind, but I think they tried. I think this record is overproduced, in my opinion, and oversang, and over riffed, and over everything was too. You get what I'm saying. Like it wasn't the best at the time, but this record has aged since then. Like now, looking at what they've come out with since this record came out, you can not only say that it's better than anything they came out with recently by a long shot, but you can appreciate it now more than you could when it first came out. Because Slipknot was one of the first bands I started listening to, believe it or not. And I think I was about. It was 2011, so everyone in the band except Paul Gray was still in the band at that exact time, and they had just started touring again after Gray had died around that time when I started listening to them. And Obviously, the most recent record was All Hope Is Gone at that time, and I didn't like it that much compared to what I heard on all their other records. So let's get to those other ones so I can stop rambling. This fucking album. A lot of people gave them shit for this record, and a lot of people put this one towards the bottom, and I don't agree at all. Yes, it was a change in sound, but I think they changed their sound beautifully because the heavy songs are heavy. There's a couple songs that have, like, for example, why am I forgetting the name of it? The Nameless is the one that's strange because it's like heavy and it goes in like a whining chorus and then heavy again. It's just interesting, but like definitely different. There's a couple songs in here that definitely bring it down compared to the other two records at the top here in the 1 and 2 spots. But I think that Volume 3 was still a great way to introduce a transitioning sound. It was amazing. The vibe and the energy and the mask. Now, let's talk about, because everybody likes to get into the, wow, voice crack. Everybody likes to get into the lore of this, of the masks, you know. Well, I have as well in the past, but I don't give a fuck about the masks now. I care about the music. But the masks are definitely an interesting thing about this band. And I wholeheartedly, by a long shot, think that the mask cycle for this record was my favorite. Now, is the self-titled in Iowa, are those masks dark, disgusting, and absolutely horrifying, and I love that part of it too? Yes. But the way that they had their mask design, actually, if you look at their tour on this record, all of them had grown their hair out. Even Sid Wilson. Everyone had long hair. Corey Taylor, everybody had their hair grown out for this record. And they let it fly too. If you watch their 2005 performance in Australia, it was like all of them had long hair, and it just the way their mask, all the aesthetic and the time period and their music was still heavy, and they were still only playing songs from 3 records at the time. I mean, it was the greatest performance I think Slipknot ever did was in 2005 in Australia. It's the best performance in my opinion. Even better in my opinion. And Corey sounded like a wailing animal, but he blew his voice out, so understandably, but you know. But even better in my opinion. London 2002 was tighter, but this performance had the best overall everything in it. So yeah, but Volume 3. Another thing I'll say about Volume 3 before I go, if you listen to this record, I would actually suggest choosing the songs that you listen to on this record carefully. I would actually suggest not spinning this record front to back, but going on the internet instead or YouTube and looking up a playlist and selecting the songs carefully. Because there are some songs on this record, and I've listened to, you know me, I mean, you see my channel, I've listened to, I've taken influence from thousands of bands. But something about this record has by far some of the most depressing music I have ever heard in my life. And if you are not trying to put yourself in a zone where you want to like cry and sob and run away and hide from people, I would choose the songs on this record carefully is all I'll say. Specifically Circle, Prelude, and Danger Keep Away. Specifically. Oh, and Vermilion Part 2. Yeah, it's depressing. So, last 2 records, you know what's coming because it's only been 7 albums they've released anyways, but these last 2 are almost identical. And it's a miracle to say that. If you listen to this one, they're self-titled, and the first one, if I'm saying they're identical, the fact that they could make music top tier for 2 records in a row the way they did in the short time period they did, because their releases got further and further spaced out as time went on. They literally, these men from 1999 to 2002, vocally, health-wise, meaning like drug use, morally and spiritually, and just overall all physically, every single one of these men destroyed themselves. They completely destroyed themselves and gave it their all at a young age on these last 2 records, which is why they're so close together. But this one, it's a first record. You know, it's technically not their first. Actually, I'm not going to include it because I'm only including studio recordings for all these rankings. But there is a demo that they did with some of the original members and a lot of old ones that got kicked out over time. But overall, this record and the first one on this list comes extremely close, and you know what they are. But those 2 records, besides Pantera's Far Beyond Driven, fuck all this grindcore ass bullshit. And I do listen to some, like Suicide Silence is a good band, and you know, Chelsea Grin and Job for a Cowboy and Cannibal Corpse are good, but If you want my true opinion of brutal heavy metal, it's these two records, hands down. But hands down. But their self-titled debut here in '99, elite. It's irreplaceable. The thing that I like about Slipknot is their first two records were so dark. If you spin these two records that you're about to see front to back, horrifyingly dark, disturbing music. That in my opinion, these other bands might be heavier, but they did not encapsulate the atmosphere of pure mental illness and darkness that this band has. It's similar to bands like Van Halen, where what they did right here as themselves, as their own entity, will never be replicated. It was so dark. It's like scientifically fascinating. On to the first one. You knew what was coming. I cannot disagree with any and every single person who ranks Slipknot always puts this record in number one, and so am I. Super cliche, right? But this record is fucking monstrous. Some little details. Corey Taylor, when recording the last track on this album, which also happens to be the title track, Iowa, it's a 15-minute song. In my opinion, if I had to, again, someone puts a gun to my head and tells me, I'm going to blow your brains out unless you give me the darkest song you've ever heard, I would pick this 15-minute horror monstrous song called Iowa. Iowa, People Equal Shit, Heretic Anthem, The Shape, I Am Hated, Metabolic. Metabolic is still to this day my favorite Slipknot song, Metabolic. Disaster Piece. It's the whole record is gently. It's one of the darkest but most well crafted pieces of music combination of album, whatever you want to fucking say, I've ever fucking heard. Corey Taylor blew his voice on the tour of this record, blew his vocals. When you listen to Volume 3 and the subsequent tour of that record, you would hear that Corey Taylor blew his voice. The drug use, as I've watched all the documentaries and heard them all speak about it, the drug use, suicide attempts, and mental illness was horrifying. And there were 9 men in this band. But it was kind of beautiful what they did with it. They made it work for them, and it's a miracle. But couple little tidbits you might not know is when you are listening to this title track Iowa, which is why I aforementioned it, you are listening to a man scream lyrics. It has been confirmed by the producers that this man sat in a bucket of ice with all his clothes off, so nude, cutting his arms in his body with a piece of a broken glass bottle. It doesn't get any darker, and he was doing that as you are hearing the recording that is still obviously on the record today. And that's what he was doing while recording what you are hearing. He was cutting himself. 515, the intro atmosphere sound, whatever, their intro to that record, is Sid Wilson. His grandfather had passed away, and he came bursting into their studio, screaming at everyone, saying he has to get his anger out. And so they recorded him. What you're hearing in 515, the intro track, is Sid Wilson, the DJ, screaming right after his grandfather had passed away. The music video for the song Left Behind, it's just, dude, oh my God. The atmosphere of this band, but specifically this record, is some of the most beautiful, but yet if you can't look at both sides of a picture and you're just a basic person, you would find this stuff to be, and what happened on the recording and the lyrics and the way and the titles and the tour of this record to be some of the most disturbing shit. A lot of these men attempted suicide so many times after they released this album. It's been proven. So, yeah, it's crazy. Slipknot is a crazy band, but they're all still alive. Well, not all of them, but God bless the ones that are gone, and we miss you. Miss you a lot. Hope you guys enjoyed this, worst to best album ranking. Love you all. Like, subscribe, share my channel, share it with friends. Peace.